You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you, but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your mother-in-law, because, you know, she didn't like you anyway. She was hoping that she'd take it up with Doug, and she didn't. She chose you, and now she's stuck with you. And you're stuck with her. That's the beauty of marriage. I don't know why we're beating up on all the mother-in-law talk today, but it sounded like a funny thing to go on. As always, get her on your good side. Tell her to go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, all those crazy places on the internet. Today we have an amazing gentleman on the show and a brilliant multi-book author. He's the author of the new hottest book to come out May 21st, 2024. It's called The Long November by Walt. Gragg. He's going to be talking to us about his new book and some of his previous books that he's taken and done that have been hugely popular. He lives in the Austin, Texas area with his wife, children, and grandchildren. He's a retired attorney. Prior to law school, he spent a number of years in the military. At his time with the Army, he involved many interesting assignments, including 3 years in the middle of the Cold War at United States European headquarters in Germany, where he got the idea for his first book, The Red Line, took shape. In this assignment, he was privy to many of the elements of the actual American plan in place at the time for the conduct of the defense of Germany. And while there, he also participated in a number of war games that became the basis for many of the novel's events. Welcome to the show. Well, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, Chris. Doing pretty well.
Awesome.
Thrilled to have a book coming out today. So
there you go. Today is the day, the launch day. Congratulations. Give us any .coms, any social media places you want people to go find out more about you on the interwebs.
My website is waltgraggbooks.com. Mm-hmm. And then I have on Facebook, I have Walt Gragg and Walt Gragg Books.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
Boy, I wish I could do it in 30 seconds. We'll give it our best shot.
Take
here.
as long as you want. We got time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Pakistani military and government collapses. Mm-hmm. There's a huge void in this really volatile country. And into that void steps a very cruel, totally awful man by the name of Salim Basra. Mm-hmm. Basra is the little despot of a few villages up in the middle of nowhere in the tribal territories. Mm-hmm. And his little army roars forth and becomes bigger by the hour. Literally within days, he's got 2 million fighters. And he roars across Pakistan even before the Americans can react. The Pakistani army's fallen apart, and the 6,000 innocents are soon going to find themselves trapped in the American embassy with 100,000 insurgents surrounding them. At the last moment, a single Marine company has arrived, and they're going to do their best. Mm-hmm. And that's not the only problem the Americans have. Basra has, at the same moment he's surrounding the embassy, is seizing Pakistan's nearly 200 nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. So the Americans have got their hands full, and it's just the first hour of November.
There you go. It's it's going to be an interesting end of the year. Christmas isn't going to be fun this year. The Long November, and you wrote this in the tradition of Red Storm Rising and Red Metal and things like that. Now, is this a continuum of characters in your previous books?
It is a continuation of my second book. The first book, The Red Line, was a standalone. Mm-hmm. It's the one that takes place in Germany, in Central Europe. Americans against Russians, which I'm getting nervous about the way things are going in Ukraine.
Yeah, you may have predicted something there.
The second one is The Chosen One. It takes place in North Africa. And then the third, The Long November, is a follow-up book, a sequel to The Chosen One.
Ah, there you go. Let's talk about your history, because people like to get to know the author a little bit early on. Tell us, in your words, kind of your experience, how you grew up, what got you down the roads you led to, and when you first started writing and going, hey, I think I got a knack for this writing stuff.
I'm still wondering about that last part, the knack part. I was born in Los Angeles. I grew up in a farm in Washington State. So I lived in part of my life in a huge city and part of my life in the suburbs of a town of 244 people. So that was an interesting start right there.
Yeah.
I then found myself drafted and on my way to lovely Southeast Asia for the beautiful Vietnam War.
Oh, wow.
I ended up spending 20 years with the Army. And gosh, I've lived in about 8 states, I think. And of course, 3 years in Europe, 3 years in Asia. It's been a very interesting life. We've been in the Austin area now for, over 30 years. This is the one place I've been able to settle down and not move. And how did I get into writing? Gosh, I don't know. When I left the military, I went to law school at the University of Texas and did that for a while, was a state prosecutor for a while, did lots of different things. And along the way, the book idea I'd come up with years and years ago when I was in Europe just wouldn't leave me alone. So I thought, what the heck, I'll try writing this stuff. And I will tell you a little secret for those who want to become writers. It's not as easy as it looks. It took a while for me to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And so how I ended up as a writer, you got me. I was just telling my wife before we went on the air that how in the world did I get here?
There you go. It is not hard. It is not easy. I'm sorry. It is hard. It's not easy to write. A lot of people try and don't. I think that's why we kind of appreciate books and writers and authors, because, a lot of us that have tried to write, not myself included, but, even then trying to write a second book for me, it's a challenge. And, for me, it's a little bit easier because I write in business for nonfiction, so I'm just telling business stories. But, you guys, when nonfiction, you're making up characters and plots and scenarios almost out of whole cloth. I mean, there's some of your experience that you utilize. But for the most part, you guys are designing everything from scratch. And you plot lines, character development, all that sort of stuff, and how that reads through the book. It's fairly complex. I mean, I'm not even sure I could pull that one off. I just stick with stuff that I know. Like this one time, this one guy did that in my company. There you go. There's a story. So yeah, it's hard, and I think that's what makes it revered. Because I think if everyone could write books, like we wouldn't think of it much. We'd just be like, "You read a book," and people would be like, "So what?" So God bless it.
Well, I still get a little bit of that, but
do you?
Oh, maybe once in a while.
From your wife?
Yeah, could be. No, she's kind of my writing partner. So
there you go.
Say that.
There you go.
She's got a big role in plotting and editing and telling me when a scene is not so good. So
there you go.
She's very much a part of this.
There you go. So she's not one of those wives who's like, I don't care about your little book business. Go take the garbage out.
Oh God, no. She is deep into this.
There you go. Well, that's good to have. You want her vested.
She's in 4 different book clubs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's really into reading, and she paints and does all kinds of neat things.
Women really love books. I think it's because they have just more imagination they can keep up in their head, and they're how they think about things, because they visualize, I think, more in their head than men do. Men, I think, we're very, what's in front of us is our thing. I don't know. But so tell us, what made you choose the plot and the gist of this story and how you laid it out? What were some of the things that made you decide these are the scenarios to use?
I'm kind of I wouldn't say I'm a history expert, but I'm a bit of a history buff. One of the first things I do when I'm looking for a new story idea is to kind of look at what's happened before and to say, what if something similar happened now? So I love to write kind of a combination of geopolitical and conflict. war, if you want to call it that, but I prefer not to call it war because that already limits the number of people who think they want to read this.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of different conflicts that I guess can lead to war, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not hard to find a sensitive place in the world that's got possibilities. I mean, you look at Pakistan when I was looking at this one, and you just look at it on a map. You've got Iran on one side, Afghanistan on the top, China and India. Not exactly the most stable corner of the world.
Mm-hmm. There you go. And so tell us about some of the characters that you're using in the book. What's their makeup? What are their motivations? Give us a little bit of tease-in, if you will.
I've been told, in fact, one of the great things about The Long November is, while it's still early, we have received some reviews, and they've been just incredible. I just am astounded by how much people are taking to the book. And one of my wife's book clubs was actually test readers for us about a month ago. And this was one younger man and 6 older women. Now, and all of the women told me right off the bat, this is not something I thought I would want to read, but every one of them loved it. In fact, the head of the book club told me that she missed her hair appointment because she couldn't put the book down. And, so I thought that was a good sign when a woman's willing to miss her hair appointment to read my book. I'm not sure her hairstylist thought it was all that great, but
you might get a call from the hairstylist attorney that you're cutting off business, slowing the business down there.
So anyway, every writer does this differently. Some write these detailed outlines that by the time they're through, they've almost got the book.
Yeah.
But I consider it creative writing. And so usually the only thing I know when I start the book is the beginning and the end. Everything in the middle is just going to show up on its own. The characters take me there. Literally, the characters will take me where they want to go. Mm-hmm. And they'll say what they want to say. And as I was telling the book club a few weeks ago, yes, I do hear the characters in my head. I see them talking, and so the characters in this one are pretty interesting. You've got your Marine captain in charge of the company in charge of the Desperate Defense. His name is Sam Erickson. Mm-hmm. He also has a lead role in The Chosen One. And the love of his life is a famous television reporter by the name of Lauren Wells, who he met in the earlier war. And they're going to meet again. He doesn't know she's in Islamabad. She doesn't know he's on the way. No. And yet they're going to find each other. And then there are other characters. I usually write about 4 different storylines in each book so that you've got 4 different tales going on at once, which sounds confusing, but I assure you it never is. The readers are never confused. So the second storyline are the Green Berets who go after the nuclear weapons. And my 2 leads there are Sergeant First Class Aaron Porter, who's a weapons specialist, and Staff Sergeant Charlie Sanders, who is an engineer. And it's Sanders' job to disarm the nuclear weapons at a particular site when they're able to get it back from Basra's people. Mm-hmm. And so that's my second story. And along the way, I was doing an earlier podcast, and the fella absolutely loved the next character. He couldn't talk more about her. Along the way, they will aid and then be aided by a little 11-year-old Pakistani girl by the name of Farida. And Farida becomes a very central, very popular character in the book. Like I said, this reader just couldn't stop talking about her. Wow. And then we've got a couple of other stories on top of that, but that's kind of the main ones.
Mm-hmm. What do you find the benefit is of having 4 different storylines going?
I can cheat and write. If I get hung up on one story, I can just move on. I can write chapter 14 before I write chapter 11.
There you go.
I'm cheating. I did it with the red line to start with because I wanted to show as much of the entire war as I could, but no one character could do that. So I ended up with 5 different storylines in that book. And through that was able to show pretty much everything that was going on. And so it became kind of a neat way of doing it. And different characters would dominate different portions of the book. and maybe come back in later for a few chapters. And like I said, it's a fun way to write it. And readers have found it to be a lot of fun. I even had one reader, I think that might have been on a podcast, one reader on The Chosen One who said she read the whole book, loved it. So then she went back and read the 4 stories individually. So she would skip through the book from Charlie Sanders and Aaron Porter, the Green Berets. She'd read their whole story and just skip all the chapters in between. And she loved it that way. So it was a lot of fun for her. So you can read the books quite easily, even though it sounds complex, it's really not.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So people really loved it so far.
So far, yeah. I've had tons of compliments on all of the books, but right now, like I said, it's early. I just got a few professional reviews in, but they have been outstanding. I'm just shocked.
People loved your prior books. I mean, they have tremendous reviews in your prior books, and I'm sure people are going to love them. The Red Line, just on Amazon alone, 1,220 ratings, 708 ratings on Goodreads at 3.8, 4.0 on Amazon, 1,048 want to read it on Goodreads, that is it. And I think I might be reading the Kindle versions of this. Looks like they're the same. And, your other books did incredibly well, too. So people love, your writing, what you're talking about, how you're doing it, and they love your books.
That's great. I said, I'll be honest with you, as the writer, I have no idea if they're any good or not. I'm the last person to ask whether my books are any good. What I do is I work. As you can see, I've only put out 3 books in 7 years. And what I do is I work them and rework them. My goal literally is to have the words leap off the page.
There you go.
And I've been told that exactly happens. And both the first 2 books, I had readers tell me they had to put it down for a minute because they found themselves literally standing in the middle of the scene. And they were, so it's really intense, but the reviews have been really positive. Like I said, 4.0s for both books on Amazon, and I'm pleased with that. And to just let your readers know, they can pick up, all 3 of them are available in print book, ebook, or audiobook. So whichever way they like to do it.
However way you want it, you can get it. So there you go. Great stories. Give us your final pitch out .com as we go out so people can find you on the interwebs.
Okay, it's waltgreggbooks.com, or you can go to Walt Gragg or Walt Gragg Books on Facebook.
There you go. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Walt. It was wonderful to have you on. Do you have anything planned for the next book? Have you started any work on that by yet?
If your listeners actually read the Long November, I would pay attention to the epilogue, because the epilogue is going to be important to the next book. And that's getting a ton of compliments. It's such a twist that I think I shocked everybody. So
there you go.
They'll have to get to the end to see that. So.
There you go. Thank you very much, Walt, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. I've been thrilled to be on with you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mounties, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. And that should have us out.